Hello, Friends House YouTube watchers. My name is Kevin McCune. Today, we're gonna make some French bread. The first thing you're gonna want to do is flour. It doesn't have to be bread flour, it doesn't have to be all-purpose flour, it doesn't have to be corn flour. Any flour that you want will work. For this recipe, I just used the Walmart brand AP flour. Then, some salt. Just to give it a little bit of taste. Some yeast and some water. So the ratios I like to use, I've kind of come up with as a sort of amalgamation of all the recipes I've done, plus my own intuition in making bread. So the ratio I like to use is about 3.5 to 1.5. 3.5 meaning around 3¼ to 3.5 cups of flour, 1.5 cup of water. And for salt, I just do to taste, usually half a teaspoon, 2 teaspoons. Yeast, do 1/4 teaspoon. Now the important thing about the yeast that you use is that depending on what kind you're using in the recipe, it depends on how you're supposed to prepare it. If you're using instant yeast, then you just put it directly into the dry ingredients. It's done. However, what I like to use is active dry yeast because there's been too many times where a loaf of mine has been ruined because I left my instant yeast out too long and it died. So you're going to want to do something called a sponge with this, which is where you put some of the water, I would say probably half a cup works. Then you want to do 1/4 teaspoon of this stuff. Make sure the water's warm. And then don't mix that. That's an important thing. I don't know the science behind it, but don't mix it. It works better if you don't. And then put a towel over it for about 10 minutes. You'll know it's ready because it'll start making kind of foamy and it'll be very aromatic with a very yeasty, bready scent. So yeah, you mix everything together. Just make sure that you can't really see any flour, like white flour in the bowl. Make sure it can be lumpy. It's normal for it to be lumpy. And make sure it's a cohesive texture. Now, I did this all yesterday. I'll let it sit for about 18 hours. Ideally, you would do 12 to 24, and this is pretty much exactly in the middle, so here's what we have. Mine looks a little bit different than what you were expecting. It is because I put some Italian seasoning and garlic powder in this one because I thought it would add a bit of flavor, so this is new for both of us. Lightly flour, clean surface. Make sure it's clean. You don't want your bread to be yucky. This should be enough. Spread that around, pretty even coat. Just make sure all the part that you want your dough to be on is covered so it doesn't stick, because that is always the worst. And then get your dough after it's been fermenting for however long. You'll know it's done because you'll see it'll kind of stick. It's good if it sticks. That means that it's healthy. If it's sticking to the bowl and it's kind of stringy on the sides, that is a really good sign. So get that out. Scoop that shit out with your hands. Little fucking furry paws. And plop that down. Just even this out a bit more. It's beautiful. Isn't that wonderful? So you don't really need to be kneading this per se, rather than just kind of forming it and letting it breathe. Because when you're fermenting, you're letting it sit in its kind of own bacterial biosphere, I guess you could say. With all the little yeasts that are making this thing super rise a lot. Making it super airy. You're going to want to let it sit a little bit so you can let it get a little bit more depth to it. I guess you could say, a little more oomph. And that comes from doing another proof. This is called proofing it, which is basically post-fermentation, letting it settle into the ideal general shape that you want it to be. And since this is just sort of a typical bread, I'm just going to do round, which is literally just a circle. The best way to do that smooth shape, slap and fold. More flour. Till it's a smooth sort of ball. Beautiful. So now we're going to let this sit for another 2 or so hours back in our bowl with some plastic wrap, just to let it grow a little bit more in the shape that we want. So while our bread is proofing for the final 2 hours, when about half an hour is left, go to preheat your oven to 450 degrees. It's called the preheating song. I'm waiting for my oven to preheat. Oh, my oven. This is the song that I sing. I'm waiting long for you to preheat, 'cause I'm really hungry, starting to get bored, and I'm starving for some bread in my mouth, bread in my gut, bread in my stomach, and some bread in my gullet. I'm hungry, I'm really fucking hungry. Really fucking hungry for some bread right now. So it's been 45 minutes since I put it in. About 15 minutes ago I took off the lid and pulled it out. So here is our finished product. That is absolutely beautiful. Listen to the crunch. Thanks everyone for watching. This is the first cooking video. Expect more in the future, but I had a lot of fun making this. So if you are interested in whatever I'm cooking or up to, or any updates related to Friend's House, be sure to subscribe to the Friend's House YouTube channel.